Level 1. The dragon bloodline. You sit on the dragon throne before the morning light has fully entered the hall, and already the Empire is asking for something more permanent than your voice. The floor beneath the throne is cold stone, polished by generations of officials who have knelt, begged, lied, and survived beneath this ceiling. Incense smoke rises in pale lines near the bronze censers. Ministers bow in rows before you. Their dark robes spread like shadows across the court. They speak of border taxes, flood repairs, grain storage, and military appointments, but every report circles back to the same silent pressure. The dynasty needs an heir. Not someday. Soon, a legitimate son to carry your blood, your name, your throne, and the ambitions of everyone who pretends to serve you. On the dragon desk before you lies the Imperial genealogy, opened to your branch of the royal line. Your name is written in red ink. Beneath it, the space for the next generation waits too cleanly, too openly. Like an accusation, the Empress sits behind a side curtain, unseen but present. The Dowager's attendants stand near the rear pillars, listening without appearing to listen. Every woman in the inner palace, every noble family with a daughter behind silk doors, every minister with a nephew to promote or a debt to hide, understands the same truth. The first recognized son can change the future of the Empire. Then, just as the court begins to withdraw, an old physician steps forward with a sealed record in both hands. He kneels lower than the others. The seal is not new. The thread around it has faded. You ask what it is, and his mouth tightens before he answers. A matter of blood, Your Majesty. The hall seems to lose sound. You break the seal. Inside, beneath old medical notes and scratched out names, you find a child's birth record with no place in the official genealogy. No title, no palace rank, no public mother. Only one mark that makes your fingers go still, the private jade symbol you once gave to a woman the palace ordered you to forget. For the first time that morning, you do not feel like the father of the Empire. You feel like a man discovering that his own blood has been hidden from him. Level 2. The hidden record. You do not read the rest of the record in the throne hall. Some truths are too dangerous to unfold beneath the eyes of ministers. You close the document, dismiss the court with a voice calm enough to deceive everyone except yourself, and order the old physician to follow you into the genealogy archive. The room sits deep within the palace, behind two guarded doors, and a corridor where the air smells of dust, wax, and old medicine. Shelves of wooden boxes rise from floor to ceiling. Each box carries the names of men who ruled before you, women who bore sons, children who lived long enough to be written into history, and children who disappeared before ink could make them real. A keeper of records lights another candle. Its weak flame trembles as the physician places the sealed file beside the official genealogy. You compare the marks yourself, the date, the hidden chamber notation, the medical hand, the erased mother's rank. Too many pieces fit. Too many pieces have been carefully damaged. One line has been scraped until the paper nearly tore, but under the wound of old ink, you can still see part of a name. Her name, the woman you were told to forget for the sake of peace. She had once worn pale blue silk, and a jade pendant you gave her in a moment. No court scribe should have recorded. You remember how quietly she left the inner palace, how everyone called it illness, retreat, mercy, stability. Words like that are useful in the palace because they can hide almost anything. You ask the physician why this record was never placed in the royal line. He lowers his eyes. Because someone more powerful than the truth ordered it buried. The answer moves through you like winter. If the child is real, then someone stole your blood from the dynasty. If the child is false, then someone has built a trap, using the one memory they knew you could not ignore. On the corner of the paper, beneath a smear of old red ink, you find a small pressed mark, not an official seal, but the trace of a woman's thumb, as if she touched the record before it vanished. Suddenly, the archive no longer feels like a room of the dead. It feels like a room where one hidden life is still waiting for you to decide whether it belongs to history. Level 3. The forgotten woman. You go to the abandoned side palace without announcing your visit. No imperial procession, no ministers, no court musicians, Only 2 trusted guards remain at the outer gate, far enough that their silence cannot become testimony. The building waits at the edge of the inner palace like a memory no one has dared to burn. Its red paint has faded, fallen leaves gather in the stone courtyard. A bronze lantern hangs crooked beside the door, and when you step inside, the air smells of dust, dry wood, and old silk left too long without a body to warm it. This was where she spent her final weeks before the palace called her illness, a retreat and retreat a kindness. You remember her differently from the way the records tried to make her small. She was never the loudest woman in the harem. She did not beg for jewels, rank, or songs written in her honor. She only looked at you as if she could see the man beneath the dragon robe. And that was more dangerous than beauty. In the main chamber, a copper mirror rests under a thin layer of dust. A hairpin box sits beside it, empty except for one broken pearl. Your hand moves across the table, and for a moment you can almost hear her voice asking whether the emperor ever owned anything that did not first belong to the throne. Then you find the hidden compartment. It is built into the bottom of a small wooden chest, sealed badly, as if someone closed it in fear rather than planning. Inside lies a strip of pale cloth, soft with age, embroidered with a tiny dragon no court tailor would have sewn for a servant's child. Beside it is the other half of the jade pendant you once gave her. The cut matches the piece still locked inside your private cabinet. Your throat tightens before you allow yourself to breathe. This is not rumor anymore, not completely. Someone took her from the palace while she carried more than your memory. Someone erased her name, buried her record, and left the child outside the story. Your dynasty tells about itself. You came looking for proof of blood. Instead, you find proof of betrayal. Level 4. The child without a name. You find the child in a small courtyard behind the cold palace, where the walls are too plain to belong to nobility and too closely watched to belong to freedom. A single oil lamp burns inside the side room, though the afternoon light has not yet fully faded. An old servant opens the door for you with shaking hands, then drops to her knees so quickly her forehead almost touches the floor. You tell her to rise, but she does not. Fear has kept her alive this long, and fear is not easily dismissed by kindness. Inside, the child stands beside a low wooden table, holding a worn book of characters in both hands. He is small, perhaps 6 years old, dressed in simple pale robes with no royal embroidery. Nothing about the room announces who he is. No dragon pattern, no jade cradle, no painted screen, only a folded blanket, a cup of warm water, and a tiny wooden horse near the bed. Then he looks up. The room becomes impossibly still. You see your own eyes in his face. Not perfectly, not enough for a court to kneel, but enough for your heart to understand before politics can interfere. He bows because he has been taught to bow to the emperor. Your Majesty, he says carefully, like a child repeating words given to him by adults. The title cuts deeper than any accusation. You want to ask his name. You want to ask whether he knows his mother's voice, whether anyone has ever told him why he must stay hidden, whether he has ever wondered why guards stand outside doors that never open for him. Instead, you ask what he is reading. He answers proudly, still looking at the floor. The old servant begins to cry without sound. In that moment, you understand the cruelty of blood inside a palace. If you call him your son, you may destroy him. If you deny him, you may save his life while stealing the truth from it. He is close enough for you to touch, but the throne stands between you like a wall. You leave before your face betrays you, and behind you the child bows again, still not knowing he has just met the father he is forbidden to have. Level 5. The Empress suspects the Empress does not confront you in anger. That would be too simple, and she has never ruled the inner palace with simple emotions. She invites you to her Phoenix Hall after dusk, when the lanterns burn low and the court ladies move with the careful silence of women trained to hear without appearing to listen. The room is arranged perfectly. The phoenix screen behind her seat, the tea placed between you, the incense thin and expensive, the windows closed against the night air. Nothing is out of place except the look in her eyes. She pours tea herself, which means the servants are meant to remember this meeting as intimate, harmless, proper. Then she says, "Your Majesty has visited old rooms lately. You keep your hand still around the cup." She smiles faintly. Not because she believes your silence, but because she expected it. The palace has many forgotten doors, she continues. But forgotten doors open only when someone important wishes to remember. You answer that old records sometimes require review. The Empress lowers her eyes to the tea. Records are dangerous things. They can create sons where there were none, or erase sons when their existence becomes inconvenient. The words are soft, but your chest tightens. She does not know everything, not yet, but she knows enough to become dangerous. You think of the child's bow, the plain robe, the tiny wooden horse beside the bed. You think of the official genealogy clean and empty where his name should be. Across from you, the Empress finally lifts her gaze. Your Majesty, she asks, how many sons does the dynasty truly have? The question hangs in the room longer than incense smoke. If you deny too quickly, she will hear fear. If you answer too carefully, she will hear truth. So you say nothing. Outside the Phoenix Hall, the harem continues breathing through silk and shadow. Inside you understand that the hidden child is no longer hidden enough. The first person to suspect him is not a minister, not a physician, not a spy. It is the woman whose own future may be destroyed if your forgotten blood is ever given a name. Level 6. The Dowager's Demand. The Dowager receives you in a chamber where the air feels older than the palace itself. Thick curtains block the evening light. A bowl of dark medicine cools beside her hand. Sandalwood smoke coils above a bronze burner, slow and pale, like the memory of something that refuses to die. She does not ask why you have come. That is how you know she already knows. You bow as a son, then sit as an emperor, and the distance between those two roles feels impossible to measure. The Dowager turns a string of jade beads between her fingers. A hidden child is only hidden, she says, until someone needs him. Your face remains still, but inside, the words strike like a door opening in a locked room. She knew, perhaps not everything, perhaps not all along, but enough. You ask why she said nothing. Her eyes do not soften, because blood is not always useful when it is born. Sometimes it must wait until the court becomes weak enough to need it, or dangerous enough to fear it. You think of the boy in the plain robe, reading characters by lamplight, bowing to you without knowing what his bow cost. The Dowager speaks of him as if he is not a child, but a seal, a banner, a weapon, still wrapped in cloth. If he is your son, she says, he must either be brought into the line properly, or buried so deeply no faction can use him. Half measures invite war, secrets invite sellers. Love invites stupidity. You feel anger rise, hot and useless. She looks at you as if she has been waiting for it. Do not mistake fatherhood for permission, she says. Your blood belongs to the dynasty before it belongs to your heart. The sentence is cruel because it is true in the language of palaces. When you leave her chamber, the medicine smell follows you into the corridor. You understand now that the child's danger is no longer only that he may be found. His danger is that every powerful person who finds him will decide what kind of future he should become. Level 7. The palace divides by the next morning. The secret has grown legs. It walks faster than you do. It moves through medicine rooms, servants' corridors, laundry courtyards, and the quiet spaces behind silk screens where women speak without lifting their voices. No one says there is a hidden prince. They only ask why the emperor visited the old archive, why a forgotten side palace has new guards, why the empress's court ladies have begun counting which physicians enter which gates. By noon, one of the old record keepers is found trembling outside the genealogy room, claiming a box has been opened without his key. By sunset, a copy of the royal line appears in the hands of a junior minister, and on it, a child's name has been written where no child should be. But the name is wrong. The mother is wrong. The handwriting is too careful. You stare at the false record and feel the palace shifting beneath your feet. Someone is no longer trying to hide the secret. Someone is trying to shape it. If the court believes the wrong child is yours, the real one becomes easier to erase. If the Empress is blamed too soon, another hand may remain clean. If the Dowager remains silent, perhaps silence itself is the answer. You order the gates sealed and the records guarded, but orders travel openly and fear travels hidden. In the harem, Women who once ignored the cold palace now send servants near it with baskets, medicine, questions disguised as errands. Ministers begin speaking of succession with too much caution. The Empress sends no message. That frightens you more than accusation. You realize the boy's existence has already divided the palace into people who want to use him, people who want to deny him, and people who want him gone before either choice becomes official. You are the Emperor, but you are no longer the only person writing the future of your blood. Level 8. The False Prince. The False Prince arrives on paper before he arrives in person. His name appears in a copied genealogy, then in a minister's careful suggestion, then in a whisper from a court lady who claims she heard it from someone near the Empress's hall. By nightfall, the lie has become polished enough to kneel before you. A boy is brought to a side chamber under guard, dressed in pale silk too new for his body, with a nervous woman beside him claiming to be his mother. He is older than the hidden child, taller, trained to lower his eyes at the right moment. Someone has prepared him well, too well. You watch him bow, and the court around you seems to hold its breath. If you accept him, the succession becomes convenient. A child appears, a mother is named. The hidden record can be dismissed as confusion, and the real boy can vanish back into silence. If you reject him too harshly, the faction behind him will know you are protecting another truth. You ask the false prince to recite his birth date. He does. You ask about the woman who raised him. He answers. Then you ask about the jade mark recorded near the original file. His face empties for the smallest breath. That is enough. Later, alone in the archive, you compare seals under candlelight. The false document does not carry the Empress's mark, though it tries to imitate her household style. It does not carry a minister's private hand either. The pressure behind it is older, colder, more careful. A seal impression has been softened, almost erased, but one curve remains. The old inner palace authority used before your reign began, the Dowager's world. You do not know if she created the false prince, allowed him, or merely watched to see whether you would be weak enough to accept him. That uncertainty is worse than proof. The palace has now given you two children, one real and hidden, one false and useful. And for the first time, you understand that blood alone will not save your son. Truth must survive the people who benefit from replacing it. Level 9. The Decree of Blood. The decree waits on the dragon desk like a blade wrapped in silk. Around you, the court hall is full, but no one breathes too loudly. Ministers kneel in strict rows. Scribes stand with brushes lifted. The Empress watches from behind a side curtain, her face hidden, but her presence sharp enough to cut through wood. Somewhere deeper in the palace, the Dowager is not present, and that absence feels more powerful than attendance. Before you lie three choices, each written in a different hand. One decree recognizes the false prince and gives the court an easy lie to kneel before. One decree names the hidden child as your blood, and turns a quiet boy into a banner for every faction in the empire. The last decree erases both records, preserving peace by murdering truth without touching a body. You read them all and feel the weight of fatherhood become colder than any crown. If you name your son, you may destroy him. If you hide him, you may save his life while stealing his place in history. If you choose the false child, you become the first liar in your own bloodline. The red brush rests between your fingers. For a moment, you see the real boy bowing in plain robes, calling you, Your Majesty, because no one has allowed him another word. You see his mother's half pendant in your palm. You see the Dowager's calm eyes, the Empress's quiet fear, the ministers waiting to discover which future will serve them best. Then you write a fourth decree. The false prince is dismissed without public disgrace. The hidden child is not named heir, not yet, but placed under Imperial protection as a ward of the throne, with his birth record sealed under your personal authority. It is not justice, it is survival. The jade seal falls. The sound travels through the hall like thunder held inside stone. No one knows whether you have saved your son or delayed the war that will someday come for him. But for now, you have refused to let the palace choose his name before he has had a chance to live. Level 10, the father on the throne years later. The official genealogy looks clean again. That is how the palace prefers its wounds, copied neatly, sealed properly, placed on polished shelves where no one has to see the blood beneath the ink. The false prince is gone from court memory. The ministers speak of him only as a misunderstanding corrected by imperial wisdom. The Empress keeps her place, dignified and unreadable, and the Dowager grows older behind thicker curtains, still turning jade beads between fingers that once moved the empire without leaving fingerprints. The hidden child grows under your protection, but not beside you. He is educated by selected tutors, watched by guards who pretend to be servants, and moved through the palace like a candle shielded from wind. He has food, books, safety, and a future narrow enough to survive. What he does not have is the one word that would make all of it simple. Father, when you see him now, he bows with better form than before. His robes are finer, though still without the symbols that would make the court tremble. His voice has changed a little. His eyes have not. They still carry the quiet shape of your own. One evening, after the court has emptied and the last memorial has been approved, you find him standing at the edge of the great hall, holding a book of history against his chest. He has been told to thank you for the new tutors. He kneels, touches his forehead to the floor, and says, "Your Majesty has been generous." The words are correct. That is what breaks you. You want to tell him generosity had nothing to do with it. You want to say you knew his mother before the palace turned her into a missing line, that the jade pendant in your cabinet once belonged to a softer world, that every decree you wrote was a door closed carefully so he would not be crushed by the people waiting outside it. But the hall is never empty enough for truth. There are pillars, curtains, servants, records, ghosts. There is always the dynasty listening. So you tell him to rise. You ask about his studies. You speak to him with the measured warmth of a ruler rewarding a promising child. And he answers with the careful gratitude of someone trained never to ask why the emperor's voice becomes quieter around him. Later, alone on the dragon throne, you open the wooden box that holds his mother's half-pendant. Beside it lies the sealed birth record, the strip of embroidered cloth, and the decree that saved him by refusing to name him fully. You have kept your empire. You have preserved the bloodline. You have outmaneuvered the false prince, slowed the factions, and given your son enough shadow to remain alive. But victory does not feel like fatherhood. The throne teaches you that royal blood is never only blood. It is law, danger, inheritance, and hunger. A son can be protected, educated, guarded, and still be denied the simplest truth of his own life. You became the emperor of a dynasty that kneels when you speak. Yet the final wound is this. The one child who carries your face may spend his life calling you, Your Majesty, because the palace cannot survive hearing him call you father. If you want to enter another forbidden imperial story, comment which emperor, dynasty, or palace secret we should step into next.